The 2025 Chicago Bears Week 1 game against the Minnesota Vikings on Monday Night Football was the most tragic event on national television in 25 years, or at the very least, the most traumatic event in the past week that on national television. What do you mean? Our second-year quarterback and our first-time head coach couldn't secure a win in their first ever game together. And in addition to that, Caleb's fit was garbage. Also, Caleb Williams paints his nails. But also, thank God Caleb Williams painted his nails in the way that he did, because I needed a little reminder that I'm not alone in feeling this way. Yeah, if you couldn't tell, this ain't serious. Like, come on, it's a Week 1 game. So yeah, let's just roll into Bears Monday Night Football. This isn't going to be super deep analysis. It's just going to be a little reminder that things will get better. I do truly believe that. How can I be so sure that, the season will turn around after one game? Caleb had an amazing first half. It was all scripted and ready to go before the game started. That's true. That is the first time Caleb has ever had that amount of stability, which is crazy because every team does that, and the Bears didn't last year. But here's the thing. It takes time to implement offenses. Normally, Week 1 of NFL, you watch as the offenses haven't truly found their identity yet. They're still lagging behind, and defenses, while a lot of defensive positions are more difficult than offensive positions, learning the schemes and where you should be and all those things, that part of it is a lot simpler. Defense is a lot more natural instincts, things like that, and just the physicality of it. It is much harder physically, and mentally you have to do everything on the fly. But offense has to be so scripted to generate separation in order to function. At least a lot of offenses are that way. And we saw the fact that defense is ahead of offense in Week 1. This game was a great example of that. Like, don't get me wrong, I've taken my fair of shots at J.J. McCarthy, calling him bad or whatever. But I knew he'd probably be all right, being that Kevin O'Connell said, no, I want this guy. I'm fine with losing Sam Darnold after last season. So we kind of went into the season knowing J.J. McCarthy might be legit. But for 3 entire quarters, he played pretty bad, while the Bears' defense, missing 3 stars of the defense, was putting on a fucking masterclass. Like, Dennis Allen is a madman. He had just crazy things going on the field. It was confusing the Manning brothers. You know who also was confusing the Manning brothers? Brian Flores' defense. So, yes, Caleb is a second-year quarterback who had an amazing first half. But him not understanding what's happening in the Brian Flores defense just makes sense. And to, bring this up, Brian Flores is one of the greatest defensive coordinators out there. Full respect to him. I do love what he does on defense. But early on in the game, when we were seeing so much success in that first half, it's because he only had, 4 people on the line. He wasn't doing heavy blitzes. Second half is pretty much 6-man pressure every single snap. So the O-line had to hold back six big boys from Brian Flores every snap. And every once in a while, one would leak through. Either way, they're getting a ton of pressure on Caleb. That's why you saw such a drastic decrease in the second half, because Caleb was basically pressured every play. Not because the O-line was bad, it's just the scheme Flores runs. Was Caleb perfect? No, but he'll be fine. Here's part of the reason he was drafted first overall. If you want to say, well, Jaden Daniels did more last year. Generally speaking, there was a better environment for a rookie quarterback to come into. Not only that, we make fun of Bo Nix for being old as shit as a rookie. He's older than me. So is Jaden Daniels. there's only a few months separating those two. And I'm pretty sure there's less than a year of time separating them being born and Justin Fields' first season was what? 2021 he was drafted? And he's basically the same age as Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels, who were drafted last year. I would hope to God that those two were almost or just genuinely pro ready by the time they were drafted. Caleb only had 3 years of college. Part of the reason he was drafted first overall wasn't that he was ready to be the starter. It was his talents, his attributes, what he could be. He's not a project like Anthony Richardson was, or anything similar to that situation. It's that he had all these great things about him. It was just, we need to coach that up, fix his weaknesses, and we're going to have probably a Hall of Famer, is the idea. He's a generational talent. It doesn't mean he has put it all together yet. That is the job of the offensive coordinator, the quarterback's coach, the head coach. That's their job, is to get him to that peak. And if we give Ben Johnson time and not just one fucking game, maybe Caleb can get there. Give them time together. We have our GM, our head coach, and our starting quarterback all on the same timeline now. The goal this year isn't win the Super Bowl. It's not. It's not even win the division. It is develop Caleb. That's why I don't know if the Bears are going to win division. It'd be great if we do. My personal thing where I'm like, this is a super successful season, is if Caleb can throw for 4,000 yards. It's never been done by a Bears quarterback before. Maybe it happens this year. If it does, we are probably in a very good spot. So, if somehow Caleb Williams is watching this, or Ben Johnson, I know I'm not every Bears fan. I'm just being rational here. I'm not expecting to sweep the division. Can't do it now. I'm not expecting to even win the division this year. This is to get Caleb back on the right track. This is to get the team on the right track. We had way too many penalties last year. We had way too many penalties last game. There was nearly as many penalty yards in favor of the Vikings as there were passing yards from J.J. McCarthy. Genuinely, you cut half of the penalties we had, and we win that game handedly. If we cut down the penalties, and yes, I do fully think some of those calls were some of the worst calls I've seen on national television in a bit. But you cut down those penalties, we're going to be in much better shape. You get Caleb into the mindset he was at the very beginning of the game and how he usually is in the last few minutes of the fourth quarter. If you can make him constantly at that level, then I think he is an absolute danger to the league. And I know there were talks that some of the players, they didn't give up or anything, but they were taking it easier after they ran up the score as much as they did in the third. And, you know, if somehow this hits Hallis Hall in any sort of way, my only thing I have to say about that is always play like you're behind. If you're ahead 2, get ahead 10. Don't give them a chance. We saw even this past Super Bowl, when everyone was pretty sure the Eagles had won, and Eagles players want to start celebrating, Jalen Hurts said, nope, we haven't won yet. That's the mentality I want in that locker room. You haven't won yet. Until that scoreboard has 0 seconds left in the fourth quarter, you're going to play like you're behind. Get ahead. Keep getting ahead. Don't give them a chance. That's just my thing. This year is the cultural reset for the Chicago Bears. We've been through 3 years of Flus. Was 4 years of Nagy, I think. 4 years of Nagy. We need to make the shift. And if you think that Ben Johnson doesn't like Caleb Williams, he has full on said that is why he wanted to come to Chicago. And that is extremely important for a quarterback. Hell, look at Justin Fields. I think Nagy wanted him. He's the one that drafted him. Eberflus didn't want him. Eberflus didn't want a quarterback, period. I don't know why he was a head coach. Tomlin wasn't too interested in Justin Fields. Aaron Glenn said, hey, that's a guy that I'm afraid of. We had to face him twice a year, and he was the scariest quarterback I had to face. I want him in this locker room. I know he's a hard worker. I know he's a dog. I want him. Just the head coach and the quarterback's relationship together, that is enough to fully change how the locker room is and how the players play. So, right now, my goals for the Bears, as if I'm playing, I don't know, reset the culture, reduce those penalties, make the team feel more together, you know? Caleb, throw for 4,000 yards, get that offense up and running like it should be. I was a little scared for defense, I'm not going to lie. Now I'm not. I think our defense might be pretty good when we have all our starters. Is there a few things I would move around? And is there players I would like to have? You know, if, the Bengals are way outside of playoff potential and they want to trade Trey Hendrickson, Trey Hendrickson, Montez Sweat, you know what I mean? That's not a viable trade. You know what I mean? Just things like that. The one big roster thing I would love to see change, and this is nothing against him. I like Cairo Santos, but he just hasn't shown that he has a strong enough leg. Like, his inability to kick from 40-plus yards away, at least reliably, has lost us games multiple times last year and already once this year. And it's gonna keep happening if we don't, do something about it. And it feels bad to say, but genuinely, I think he might be one of the like, every time I see Cairo Santos talk about playing in the NFL and things like that, I think he might be one of the players that wants to be there the most. It's just, man, he's just not hitting field goals from as far as he should in the modern NFL. It's just, it's hard. Yeah, that, if you want to say the game is fully on Caleb, whatever, I don't think that's true. Caleb could have played better. The overthrows are kind of inexcusable. I know he was under pressure. He does have to figure it out, but it's week one. Brian Flores' defense, I get it. Cairo Santos, I know it goes back to the good old Tyler Ninja Blevins tweet of, I don't get how kickers just miss kicks. But, you missed a kick and that screwed us over, and then you weren't able to kick the ball through the end zone, and that screwed us again. And it's just, that was heartbreaking. Special teams wasn't good enough. What else? Just bullshit penalties everywhere. Honestly, one takeaway I have from this is Caleb needs to use his tight ends more. Cole Kmet is one of the most absolutely slept on offensive players in the NFL right now. I think he is, if given the chance, he is a top 5 tight end in the whole league. Genuinely. I believe that with my whole heart. The only problem is he doesn't get the chance to show that. He has one of the lowest drop rates, period, of all tight ends in the league right now. He just doesn't get targets. And then you have Colson Loveland, number 10 overall in this year's draft, and he gets one target. We need to use these tight ends more, especially if you're playing against like Brian Flores, where, he's throwing 6 guys at you to try to make you throw bad passes. You got to use those safety blankets, Maybe I'm reading it wrong because Brian Flores is a madman and I'm not, I'm not an offensive mastermind. It's just, that's what makes sense to me. It could be completely wrong. And I know I'm not like the highest football IQ guy out there. It's just, I feel like using these 2 great tight ends you have more might help out. Also, the run game needs help, but we'll get to that. Either way, I'm not worried at all about Caleb's development at this point. If next season, week 5, he's bad, yeah, we got issues. But, people aren't talking about how bad Joe Burrow was, how bad Bo Nix was. Spencer Rattler, he's also in his 2nd season, played awful. Drake May wasn't great. Why are we not talking about all these other quarterbacks that didn't play well? And why are we talking so much about Caleb, who played 3 great quarters of football and 1 quarter against, I want to say it again, Brian Flores' defense poorly? It just doesn't make that much sense to me. Anyways, I'm a real fan of the Bears. This is not the lowest it's ever been. It's just, we had high hopes, and it felt like they were dashed away after it was in our hands. So, if you're a real Bears fan, you've really been with this shit like I have for 24 years. Yeah, 24 years. You understand that sometimes things just don't go our way. Oftentimes they just don't. But I think Caleb is the best quarterback we have had for our organization since Jay Cutler. So, there's that. Anyways, give him time. Let him cook. Anyways, thank you so much. See you next time.